No, there have been plenty of Trump policies that I've criticized because he's only right about 99.78% of the time. So the First Step Act I thought was a misstep. But I would say the rest. Excuse me. I would say the rest of the administration has been very successful.
What's going on, you guys? Today we have Kyle Kulinski going in on Piers Morgan in the panel. Kyle Kulinski is talking about Trump taking the oil from Venezuela. Trump literally going in and taking the Venezuelan leader hostage. Let's get into it.
But I do understand the logic to what Trump is doing here. Do you?
No, because we don't have a right to act like this around the world. We're supposed to be a nation among nations, not a nation above nations. And they used to at least lie to us in the past and say that this is good for the world and we're spreading freedom and democracy. Now they don't even bother to lie. Now it's naked, rank, disgusting imperialism where they say, we're going to take the oil. And the point is that we're going to take the oil. We're going to take the minerals. We're going to take the precious metals. We're doing this for our corporations. We're doing it for the Epstein class, the billionaires. And this, to piggyback on what Dave Smith said, is frankly not what many of the MAGA voters thought they were signing up for. They thought America First actually meant America First. By the way, you also replaced the Maduro regime with the Maduro regime. Congratulations on that. It's also been now a week straight of pro-regime protests. Now you have roving gangs of Venezuelan militias that are kidnapping Americans. But again, I come back to the fundamental point, which is if you sign on to stuff like this, you're saying might makes right and the law of the jungle is back. What you're saying is China has a right to go into whatever smaller country they want and depose the leader and say we're doing it because we can and we have the right to do it and we have bigger guns and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So they're never going to address that fundamental question, which is why do we have a right? Do we actually believe in international law, or was that all a joke? Are we rolling the clock back to the 1700s and the 1800s, and we're going super primitive style here? And I think the answer to that is yes. They want to go super primitive style.
Make sure you guys like and subscribe for more content like this.
International law goes back to antiquity. It's not some creation of modernity, whether we're talking about the 1700s or the 20th century.
The Geneva Conventions, the Nuremberg Tribunal, the Geneva Conventions and the Nuremberg Tribunal?
Yes, those exist, but international laws, the jus gentium goes back to antiquity. However, unfortunately, a lot of our liberal friends think history began a few decades ago.
The League of Nations was useless. It fell apart, and that's why we had the UN. That's why we had the Geneva Convention.
Right, I'm talking about millennia ago,
because we looked at piles of millions of dead bodies, and we said that's a bad idea. We looked at piles of millions of dead bodies and said that's a bad idea. Let's not do that anymore. Let's actually have a framework and rules and laws, and Trump is blowing that up. By the way, he bombed fishing boats from Venezuela, Trinidad, and Tobago, and Colombia. He just did the regime change in Venezuela. He bombed Yemen and Somalia and Nigeria and Iran. He's threatening Greenland and Panama and Canada and Cuba and Mexico. And you sit there the whole time and act like it's okay. Is there anything Trump can do, Michael Knowles, that you would say, I condemn it, and you hop off the Trump train, or are you going to tickle his taint for the rest of your fucking life?
No, there have been plenty of Trump policies that I've criticized because he's only right about 99.78% of the time. So the First Step Act I thought was a misstep. But I would say the rest. Excuse me. I would say the rest of the administration has been very successful. What's your problem? What's
my
your
problem is
criticism?
that you're a cuck and you're a hack and you're not an independent thinker and you're meat riding Trump.
Why do you say
that?
know
that what he's doing in imperialism and you don't care.
And this is why I love Kyle Kulinski. You know, being born in the South, I even used to, support Trump back whenever, during his first term. I thought that, I started drinking the Kool-Aid. And then, as stuff goes on, I really do see just how big of a cult this is, how big of a cult these Trump, these MAGA, these people that support, the president, no matter what he does, even whenever he's being implicated in some Epstein files. It really does. Like, how far are they going to walk the plank, into their own trap, really?
At 99.78%. Congratulations. You rented your brain to a war criminal, pedophile, rapist. I hope you're happy.
A war criminal, pedophile, rapist? You brought up a point. You brought up international law, and you made a very false point, a dumb point, which is that international law began only a few hundred years ago. I corrected you, and I pointed out that the international law is part of the Western tradition. Excuse me one second. It goes back to antiquity. It's a principle of the jus gentium. And then you said, well, international law has failed because of the League of Nations failure, which I think is actually undermining your argument and proving my point and proving Trump's point, because the liberal internationalism that was established by people like Woodrow Wilson did, in fact, fail, which is why we need to restore an older and more classical conception of the international order, which is precisely what Trump's doing. So I think you've hoisted yourself with your own petard.
Might
and then
makes
you
right.
just make
Law
a
of the
lot
jungle,
of
might makes
vulgar
right.
sort of non sequiturs because you don't have a leg to stand on.
All right, let me bring in.
Let me ask you this question.
Hang on,
Piers, let me ask him a question real quick. Tell me the name of the Minister of Defense in Venezuela.
I don't know. Whatever his name
Well,
is.
and that's the
Garcia
problem, is that
or
you're
Rodriguez
advocating
or
for a
something.
regime change. You don't know the first thing.
I didn't. I just said the opposite.
You're
I
advocating
argued
for the
against a regime change.
He
Kyle,
actually
you have
said
to
the
get the cotton
opposite.
out of your ears.
I heard Michael
Kyle,
Knowles.
I just want to correct
I heard
something.
Michael
You said I'm
Knowles
arguing for a
say
regime
the
change. I
regime
disagree.
remains there, right? So he said the opposite. In fact, I want to bring in Coleman.
No, but he wanted to take out Maduro. Don't give me that cutesy little
Yes,
BS.
but he
That's
made
not a
the point that the
regime.
regime
US
is
intervention.
still. He made the point the regime is still there, and the vice president appears to be much more compliant with running Venezuela the way America would prefer for its national security than Maduro. So that's what Michael said. He didn't advocate regime change. Let me bring in Coleman Hughes. Coleman,
Kidnapping the president is
well,
not
hang on, Carl. Let me bring in
regime change.
Coleman has said a word.
Yeah, it's getting pretty heated. I mean, if you watch Piers Morgan before, you know that, he doesn't let anyone progressive talk one bit. It's sort of insane. He says it's uncensored, but it's the farthest thing from uncensored. From what I'm seeing myself, my own take, I see that Trump is coming in with this sort of, this one-man army approach, this, we're one strong country, we're going to be able to, make America great again. We're going to be the number one world power, stay the world power for the rest of, like whatever it is. Whenever America before him, pretty close before him, set up these different ways to where, different countries are going to be working together. You can't really pull this, I'm the strongest country in the world. You saw him Trump attempt to do that with the tariffs in China, and China's not weak enough to pull that shit on. China fought back and now, went into a different position to where the tariffs failed, that it just was not a good thing. And you cannot do these things anymore the way that America used to. This is not one, just one giant. I mean, our military, we have, plenty of power, but that cannot be the only answer that we have. We're going to have to start finding new ways to work together without getting trampled on, right? I'm not sitting here and saying that we can get completely, like slapped all around. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. But I do think that there's a way to not just punch everything that gets in your way, right? But yeah, y'all let me know what's going on. This is the New Left.